What do you think about having a wife just for a day? I mean, a wife a day or a contract wife? Well, this isn't just jokes and plays to main character. Choi Sang-yoon, she is a perfect lady, impeccable at best, lovely and very fun to be with. Isn't that the most important character for a woman? In fact, a lady, yes. Sang-yoon thinks the same as you, which is the reason she had decided that instead of spending the rest of her life with a man and ensuring the man enjoys all the goodness she has, why can't she just share herself into contract marriages? She gets married to several men who come to her for the contract marriage, and to her, she is even helping them because she gets to make them achieve what they need to achieve for the time being. Maybe for some, they just need to show their aged parents that they have found a life partner so their parent can rest in peace. For another, it may be to brag to his friends that he has found a fine lady so they can respect him better. For some it is for companionship for a while for another it could be to show off. Regardless, she has helped several men achieve their goal. Having done the job for 13 years, she is almost 30 and she seeks to retire soon. At the moment, she has a client who is her most paying client, Young Jae-ho. He meets her on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and he has never missed her payment. In fact, her roommate calls him Mr. Payment or Mr. Pension. He is a man that takes good care of her. He has dinner with her when they meet and even cooks. He barely says words and he lives a life of misery that she doesn't even know why he wanted her in the first place. As a principal, she doesn't investigate her clients as long as they aren't suspicious, so she doesn't investigate him. On the other hand is a suspicious actor, Kang Hee-jin, who is still in love with his first love, Jamie, who has left him about 13 years ago, and he has also named his cat Jamie. Growing up as a young child, Sang-yoon has been a victim of MSU, who had tried to set her up with a rich family about 13 years ago. But she had refused, so Yu's income was to be jeopardized, and she promised to pay Yu monthly. After she sends the allowance to Yu, she calls her and calls her name Jamie. Yu asks to see her, and she also intends to see Yu so she can get revenge. But she is shocked to find out Yu wants to end their contract, and she doesn't want her money again. She walks away from Yu as she remembers the incident. As she leaves, she gets a call from one of her clients who asks her to attend his daughter's school program. He tries to call her his daughter's mom, and she gets angry and walks out telling him her contract is that of a wife and not a mother. He insists that it is the same thing and tries to force her in, so she fights him and leaves. She also meets her roommate, Woo Gwang-nam, a gay whom she had worked with to show to his dad that he could have a wife. He reminds her of their plan that they will retire and move to Canada to enjoy their life. In furtherance to their plan, she makes several attempts to break up with Jae-ho, but she finds it impossible. Jae-ho also starts attending a therapy program to allow him to relate with women well, and he is also seen stalking a lady. After several attempts of breakup, she realizes that she has developed a one-sided feelings for Jae-ho more because she pities him. She eventually decides to break up, and before she says it, he asks for the breakup first. As she prepares for her retirement, she meets her client's daughter in school as a last step of goodwill, and she gives her a gift. Sang-yoon is bothered about the way Jae-ho had reacted after he talked about the divorce. Although she wanted it too, she didn't assume he would be the one to bring it up. She asks him why, and he tells her he has filed for the divorce. She insists that she will work for the remaining days of the month before the divorce is absolute. On the other hand, Gwang-nam asks her when she arrives home if she intends to refund Jae-ho like she does for her other staff. But she tells him she will be working for the end of the month. Meanwhile, Hee-jin goes for an interview where the interviewer badmouths the biggest company in the country, Kangjin. Unknown to them that Hee-jin is one of the sons of the owner of Kangjin. He tries to correct the notion that he hates the company and why he refused to do any work with them, but that doesn't stick. Because he doesn't want his siblings to get angry at him. He immediately visits his brother at the company, and his brother offers him a commercial at the company, but he insists he doesn't want to work for the company. While there, he overhears a conversation between his brother and a staff member about Tiffany Yu, who once worked for Ina Group and had retired. Yu is the same Yu that had manipulated Sang-yoon for a while, and the name Ina Group sounds familiar to Hee-jin. Yu gets home and looks at the cards Sang-yoon had given her the first time. There, she receives a call from Mr. Choi, from her former company, and she goes to see him. She sights Sang-yoon at the restaurant, and she talks with Choi. In the same vein, Sang-yoon and Gwang-nam keep planning their trip to Canada. She talks about how she feels bad about the divorce with Jae-ho, which makes Gwang-nam ask her if he treats her better than other men, and she recalls her memories with him. That day, a strange man approaches Jae-ho claiming to be his family, but Jae-ho insists he doesn't have a family. Jae-ho also practices how to stab as he looks at several murder pictures thinking of the best way to stab. The following day, Hee-jin awaits Jamie, his cat, and as he goes downstairs to collect it, he bumps into Jae-ho, who is waiting for his package. Jae-ho assumes the package Hee-jin is holding belongs to him, and they struggle with it so Jamie falls. To Hee-jin's shock, Jamie, who doesn't allow him to carry him, is very accommodating towards Jae-ho. So he asks Jae-ho to carry Jamie upstairs, while he helps Jae-ho with his package, since the package has arrived. As they open the elevator, they see Sang-yoon inside. Hee-jin immediately recognizes Sang-yoon as his first love, Jamie. He is shocked about this, and she doesn't recognize him. He sees the mutual rings on Sang-yoon and Jae-ho's hand, and he is shocked that his first love is married. During the dinner, Sang-yoon offers to make meals till the end of the fake marriage, and she also sees that Jae-ho's package contains several detergents. That night, Hee-jin thinks about his first love. He also listens to news about a young lady that has been stabbed on her stairs. He hears noises outside and goes out to check only to see Jae-ho in a suspicious way. He successfully sleeps through the night, while Sang-yoon keeps dreaming about Jae-ho. On Sang-yoon's next dinner, Hee-jin stops her to ask about Jae-ho's occupation and where she was the night before. She doesn't even know Jae-ho's occupation, so she forms anger and enters the house. She tells Jae-ho about this and asks Jae-ho for his occupation, but Jae-ho doesn't open up to her. She realizes he most likely didn't see her for more than what she is, a fake wife. So when she is about to leave, she tells him that she had asked for that extra month because he was her best fake husband, and she wanted him to admit that she was the best wife too. But she doesn't need that any longer, so their next dinner will be the last. He thinks about the fact that the only reason he had entered into the contract was so he could be good to at least one person, and he has achieved just that. That night, Yu prepares to commit suicide, but she receives a call from Kang's son Jin, the manager of Kangjin Company. She honors the invitation because she knows him from when he was younger, and she was still working with Sang-yoon, who was Jamie then. She assumes he wants to talk about those times and asks him if he knows her before, and he says no and says he only wants her to work for his company. On the last dinner between Jae-ho and Sang-yoon, Haku stops Sang-yoon again and tries to pester her for the information. She plans to reveal her relationship with Jae-ho to him since it is the last day, but before she does that, Jae-ho opens the door and invites her to eat. There comes the greatest shock. Jae-ho is a judge of family law, and he had seen Sang-yoon at his court severally for divorce. For 6 times in 2 years, she had divorced in his court, and throughout every proceeding, she has accepted faults. Jae-ho is shocked there is someone who accepts faults that easily, which is why he dug and found out her profession. He overhears Hee-jin accusing her, so he comes out to call her in, but Hee-jin accuses him, so he reveals his profession. He says the murder files with him are for one of his cases where the wife was found dead, and he knew that during the divorce, the husband was violent, which was why he stalked her a little. Since the issue is solved, he enters and has his last dinner with Sang-yoon. The following day, he returns to the office where he tries to relate with his staff a little, but it is awkward. His professor warns him that no staff must resign because of social attitudes again, and he must draw people closer. As he returns to work, he keeps thinking about Sang-yoon while Hee-jin keeps having sleepless nights too. That day, Sang-yoon drives and someone suddenly blocks her car. She leaves and goes home, then tells Gwang-nam to drive her out. It's a rainy night, and as she leaves the car, someone confronts her with a knife and asks her to walk. She asks who he is. She imagines if it is someone she had been involved with and tries to fight. Fortunately, Hee-jin comes through for her and the assaulter runs away. He asks her if she needs help and takes her to his house. He keeps asking about her relationship with Jae-ho until she reveals that she is a visiting housekeeper. As she is about to leave, he calls her Jamie and admits that he knows her from a long while as the precious daughter of Ina Empire. He reveals he saw when you introduced her to his parents, and she admits it too. She reveals her new profession, but asks him to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, the security guard tells Jae-ho that his wife was upstairs. He plans his divorce letter and tries to visit her, unknown to him that Sang-yoon has also brought his letter. They bump into each other, and he asks her to have tea with him. As they talk, he reveals that she should be a victim of women assault because of her profession, and this makes her feel bad as she tells him she prefers when he is silent. She walks away angrily and assumes the envelope with him is a divorce letter, so she gives him the one with her and takes the one with him. When she wakes the next morning, she finds out the envelope he had given her was a ticket. He submits the divorce and calls her to inform her, but she finds it awkward to apologize. Jae-ho also investigates her assault. She receives a call from Hee-jin, who insists she brings his shirt that he lent her that morning. She reluctantly goes, and he tries to talk with her, as she is about to leave. He gets a knock from Jae-ho. Hee-jin wonders why he has visited his lodge, and Jae-ho reveals that the person who assaulted Sang-yoon is someone close to Hee-jin. They check out the CCTV, and Sang-yoon realizes that Jae-ho has worked so much to ensure she is fine. Jae-ho reveals that the stalker wasn't for Sang-yoon, but Hee-jin, and that was why Hee-jin had relocated from his former house. Since the issue has been resolved, Sang-yoon walks away with Jae-ho and appreciates him for the concert invite, but he tells her isn't going with her, and the invite was just given to him by his boss, his professor. Regardless, she goes for the concert and sees him, but he refuses to sit beside her, and gives someone his VIP ticket. After the concert, Jae-ho's boss sees him and asks about the other staff he had intended Jae-ho comes with. While Jae-ho tries to find an excuse, Sang-yoon comes out and behaves familiar with him. His boss asks why Sang-yoon is, and he introduces Sang-yoon as his wife. His boss invites them to eat with his wife, and Sang-yoon behaves so beautifully that his boss's wife was so impressed. That night, Sang-yoon realizes that Jae-ho is just socially awkward, so she tells him that for the remaining time they have, she will teach him how to be loved by everyone. The following day, his boss invites him for a dinner with all the staff, and Yu also fulfills the terms of Sun Jin's contract by bringing a foreign investor, John, to buy Kang Jin's land. To Sang-yoon's shock, she receives a call from a former client. She tries to refuse the job, but the client insists. It's the funeral of his mother, whom he had taken her to meet when she was alive. He tells her that his mother's only death request was that she is an attendant. She meets his sister, who gives her a letter from his mother. When she reads it, she sees it is an apology from the mother, and gives him. As she walks away, she receives a call from Yu, who asks to have tea with her, but she refuses. As Yu gets home, the police visit her and arrest her for fraud over the land she asked John to buy. It turns out she had expected it before, so she isn't bothered. News about her arrest gets to Gwang-nam, who calls Sang-yoon when she is at Jae-ho's place. She watches the news and tells Jae-ho how Yu had trained her as a wife so she can be sold to a rich family, but she was Yu's worst investment. She visits Yu at the hospital and tries to blame Yu for all the money he had taken from her. But Yu reminds her that she had sent the money voluntarily because she doesn't want to be seen as weak and without pride. Meanwhile, Gwang-nam goes home for his mother's remembrance and announces to his siblings that he is relocating to Canada, and they can stop being bothered that he is gay. That day, Kang Jin, Hee-jin's dad, visits him and insists he returns home, while his mother tells him that they have planned an arranged marriage for him as part of a business deal. Also, they insist he gets married so that the rumors about him being gay dies. Sang-yoon uses all her savings to bail Yu, and as a result, she can't travel to Canada again. She tells Gwang-nam, who eventually decides to remain with her. That night, Jae-ho is forced for the team dinner, and he doesn't want to disturb Sang-yoon, so he doesn't invite her, but she asks if she can have dinner in his house alone. She goes to his house and Hee-jin sees her. He plans to use her as a cover girlfriend, so he covers her face and takes her to the journalist. Jae-ho watches this in the news during his dinner, and he is shocked. He recalls that some weeks ago, he had gone to meet his therapist to talk about how he feels comfortable with Sang-yoon, and his therapist had advised that he may see her as special, and he should watch it for a while. Seeing her on the news makes him very bothered, and he doesn't know what to do. On the other hand, she asks Hee-jin what he is doing, and Hee-jin tells her he knows of her business, and she should be his fake wife. She reveals to him that she has retired and no longer interested, but he begs her, claiming he can't run away because of his mother, and he needs her. He reminds her that she had bailed Yu with all her money, and she needs money. He gives her his hidden bike so she can escape from the journalist. The following day, she goes to pick Yu up from the detention with the bus Gwang-nam had bought her, and she takes Yu to her house so Yu can stay there until Yu pays her back. When Yu keeps talking about how she will ensure Sang-yoon return to the classy girl she had trained and get her married, she walks away with Gwang-nam to a field where she reveals to Gwang-nam that she was the lady Hee-jin revealed, and she is considering working for Hee-jin because she pities him. On the other hand, Jae-ho remains disturbed by her absence, and when his staff talks about how horrible Hee-jin's new girlfriend is because they have a crush on Hee-jin, he gets so pissed at them. Having given it so much thought, Sang-yoon accepts Hee-jin's request and signs his contract. She goes for her next dinner with Jae-ho and tells him about her new contract and her cancelled retirement, but he asks her if she is broke, and she needs money. He claims he can extend their contract and gives her how much she needs. She wonders if he is in love with her, but he says no and tells her that he only paid her that much because he pitied her. She wonders if that is how he sees their business and walks away. She continues on her contract with Hee-jin, and on her next date with Jae-ho, she refuses to go. Jae-ho realizes he now likes her, so he goes to see his therapist, accusing her of being the reason. He claims if his therapist hadn't said something about her being special, he wouldn't have felt it, but his therapist tells him the only way he can do things right is to let the feeling flow. The next day, she returns to the apartment for her date with Hee-jin, and when she is about to leave, journalists try to stalk her car, but Jae-ho confronts them, telling them that he is Hee-jin's neighbor and she is his wife. Disturbed, he visits Sang-yoon in her house the next morning, and it shocks her greatly. She is to go hiking, so she asks him to follow her. He tells her he was waiting for her for the last appointment and asks to renew their contract, but she refuses. He begs her, telling her that his boss has told everyone in the office about her and he needs her. She offers to see him the next day when she is coming to see Hee-jin. The next day, she agrees to extend the contract, so she calls Hee-jin down and asks them to pick 3 days each in the week, leaving Sunday for her. They agree that Jae-ho retains his former dates on the condition that he will take care of Jamie when Hee-jin is on date with Sang-yoon, since Sang-yoon is allergic to cats. With the agreement, she goes on her date with Hee-jin and reveals that she thinks Jae-ho has a special feeling for her. He tells her she is quite different and it is probably normal for a man to develop feelings. He reminds her of the day he had met her and how she fearlessly destroyed the entire dinner. Meanwhile, Yu meets Mr. Choi and she asks to see Ina's boss. She tells them that she is indeed, and she hates debts, so they should tell him she wants to see him concerning Jamie. When Jae-ho gets to work, his boss informs him that they need to have a work retreat in his house, and he should plan to treat them well. He meets Sang-yoon at a restaurant, and they talk. There he reveals how he first met her. They also go shopping to design the house, and on their way, they talk about their upbringing and how they are both orphans. They take wedding shoots, and on the retreat day, Sang-yoon takes it upon herself to decorate the house beautifully. When Jae-ho returns with his colleagues, he is shocked to see how beautiful the house looks, and his colleagues are also shocked. He actually has a life away from his strict ways. Saw overhears his staff talking about how she is more classy than him, so she decides to drink too, and they get drunk and have fun. She wakes the next day at home and narrates all that has happened to Gwang-nam before going to Hee-jin for her next date. She is still tipsy because of the drinks, so when they go outside to talk, she sleeps off and rests on his body. Coincidentally, Jae-ho, who is also on his morning run, sees them from behind and sees her comfortably relaxing on his body. He recalls that she had intentionally kissed him the night before and gets heartbroken. Jae-ho remembers his painful childhood as he sees Sang-yoon. He then decides to wait by the corridor while Hee-jin brings Sang-yoon inside the house. Since Jamie is in the house, Hee-jin takes Sang-yoon to Jae-ho's house. When he sees the entire decoration, he comments that Sang-yoon is a professional. When Sang-yoon wakes up and leaves, she returns to Jae-ho's house the next day for her date and calls the cleaner to clean the house. Jae-ho comments that everyone is professional and she doesn't rebut the fact. She has also helped Jae-ho with clothes combinations, and when he wears it to work, his staff loved it. Hee-jin reveals to his manager about Sang-yoon being his first love, and Yu also meets Park, the chairman of INA. Before that, Park recalls how Yu had first brought Sang-yoon to him and asks that his family adopt her so they can get a daughter to marry into Kangjin. When Yu arrives, he tells Park to bring Jamie back, but Park refuses, so she blackmails Park with revealing his company's corruption and walks away. That day, Sang-yoon goes on a date with Hee-jin and they ride horses. On her next date with Jae-ho, Hee-jin keeps calling her to complain to her about how his butt hurts. As a result, Jae-ho finds it difficult to confess his feelings to her, as he had intended to do on that day. She tries to think about their last kiss, and if he has any intention to talk about it, but he behaves as if the kiss didn't happen, so she has no other choice but to ignore. The following day, she goes for her next date with Hee-jin, who takes her on the yacht. On their way back, some boys try to hit their car to get money, but Hee-jin clocks them. Jae-ho realizes the ties she buys for him makes him look better, so he gets several other ties, and he gives her so she can arrange it with the suits in a way that will fit him. That day, Hee-jin waits for her by the park, and when he doesn't see her, and he is about to leave, she comes with the tie, and he assumes it is for him and takes it. He makes a video with the tie claiming he got it from his girlfriend. When Jae-ho's staff watches this video, Jae-ho goes to Peep and feels bad seeing the tie. As a result, he calls Sang-yoon to meet him at court. She watches his proceeding, and on their way, he tells her that he sees her as a woman. She tells him they will talk better when they get to his house. At home, she makes him drink and tries to confess her feelings too, but he passes out. She goes nearer to him, looks at his face, and as she is about to leave, he drags her back and tells her he had always been careful because he feared that she wouldn't come to his house again, and that is why he had always been indifferent. She smiles, and she leaves his house that rainy night realizing that her feelings for him aren't just one-sided, and he also has the same feelings for her. She continues on her daily business, and the next time she sees him, she tells him that she also has feelings for him, but she doesn't want him to see the feelings as a big deal. She also reveals that she is no longer interested in stopping what she feels for him, no matter how odd it seems. This makes him feel better, and he goes to ask others online what it means for a person to have feelings, but not wanting to pursue it. The following day, she is to meet Hee-jin, and he has planned so well for her visit. He calls her 2 hours before to tell her he can't wait to see her, but he receives a visit from Sun-jin and his mother before her arrival. Sun-jin insists he wants to know the lady he is seeing, but he tells them not to be inquisitive because he isn't looking forward to marriage, so Sun-jin asks him to reconsider because of his mother. After they leave, he feels depressed and sends a text to Sang-yoon, who is already in front of his house, that he isn't home. For her next date, she goes out with Jae-ho to a social program, and all the wives love her so much, and they also love the way Jae-ho was conscious of her throughout the entire date. Meanwhile, Park insists he isn't ready to take Sang-yoon back no matter what you says. As a result, he calls Mr. Choi and tells Mr. Choi to deal with the situation, but Mr. Choi reminds them that they owe Jamie. Park insists Jamie is a failed project, but since Yu is insisting, he wants Mr. Choi to send Sang-yoon out of the country. Later, Sang-yoon goes to the location for her date with Hee-jin, and for the second time, he doesn't come. She tries to send him a message to know what is wrong with him, and after her call, Mr. Choi visits her. He claims he is shocked that she never tried to find Ina's help after she left, and she reminds them that she is strong, and if they had assumed that she would come, it's because they don't know her. Mr. Choi informs her that Yu had asked Park to take her back and Park had refused. She reveals that she has no idea about the entire arrangement, and they don't have to worry because no matter what Yu thinks or say, she isn't interested. They show her a document of her online telling her that she will never get a job in the country, so if she wishes, she should go for a company they are referring her to. She laughs at them because she is really not interested. Hee-jin's mother has been trying to reach out to him since the last time they met, but she locks him off. She asks his manager to open the door, and she confronts him telling him that he is her only son, and all his brothers are fighting over the properties. She is the only wife, and she deserves something, so he should please cooperate with his father, but he refuses. As she leaves the house, she bumps into Sang-yoon, who is dressed shabbily. She asks Sang-yoon if they have met before, but Sang-yoon says no, so she asks to have tea with Sang-yoon. When they meet, Sang-yoon finds a way to excuse herself. She asks her assistant what he thinks about Sang-yoon, and her assistant says he sees elegance in her and the way she behaves. Sang-yoon goes for her date with Jae-ho, and he asks if she is still traveling. She wonders if he doesn't want her to, but he doesn't give a response. As the date finishes, she tells him she is going home to rest. On the other hand, Hee-jin calls for a corporate lawyer. He also calls his mother, threatening her that the next time she meets Sang-yoon, she will lose him as a son. He feels weak, so he staggers to his car. Sang-yoon fortunately sees him. He asks her to drive him to a lodge, and some journalists take their pictures. The picture gets to Jae-ho, who sees her in that same dress and feels bad. Just as Sang-yoon takes Hee-jin to the lodge, he faints, so she stays to take care of him. When he eventually wakes, he asks her what his mother has said, and she tells him his mother is naive, so she likes her. He narrates how he is his mother's only son and growing yo. His mother will get drunk and his brothers will laugh at his mother, saying that if he ever tried to help them fight for the properties, they will break his mother and not him, which is why he had decided to hate his father and not get involved with the family in order to protect his mother. He realizes he has gotten emotional and apologizes to her, but she tells him not to apologize, telling him he had grown up well and he shouldn't stress himself and call her if he is stressed. At work, Jae-ho eats with his staff, and one of them asks him if he was once married and had remarried, as she saw a document about it in his house. He tells them yes, and they wonder if his new wife, Sang-yoon, knows. Later, Sang-yoon leaves Hee-jin's lodge and sees the pictures trending. She wonders if Jae-ho would get the wrong message, but she doesn't know if she should call him and clarify. Coincidentally, Jae-ho calls and asks for her explanation too, so she explains. He tells her he wishes to see her, and she tells him where she is so he can pick her up. Meanwhile, when Hee-jin finishes with his bath, he can't find Sang-yoon, so he comes to the reception to find her. He meets his new corporate lawyer, a beautiful young lady, and she introduces herself. He sees Sang-yoon by the door and calls her. He introduces her as his future wife to the lawyer, and the lady points to the door, showing them that the man coming is her former husband. When they turn to the door, they find out Jae-ho is her former husband. It seems this is no longer a love triangle, but a love rectangle. How will this dilemma of the love and contract be solved?